The Mazda 3 was redefined for the 2019 model year. Now in its fourth generation, we have been sent a 2020 Mazda 3 in the top preferred trim to test out. It's still available as either a sedan or a hatchback. We have the sedan model here with all-wheel drive, a new addition for this generation. Mazda is hoping that it can capture some of those SUV buyers who just don't need the space of the SUV, but want the practicality of having all-wheel drive for the winter. We're going to go ahead and check out the 2020 Mazda 3 to see how it drives. Before we get it out on the road, design is a highly important aspect of all Mazdas, so I wanted to focus on that real quick. The Mazda 3 has always been an attractive car, but I think this is by far the best looking Mazda 3 generation we've seen. We've got this new front end that's an evolution of Mazda's Kodo 2 design language that began a couple of years ago. Moving back, we've got these new 18-inch wheels on the preferred trim. Again, this is a top tier Mazda 3 trim that we have. We've got this dark gray color. It's not my favorite. I think if you're looking at a 2020 Mazda 3, there are only two colors you should be interested in. Soul Red Metallic, which is $600. It's the best color Mazda offers by far. It's a bit expensive, but it looks worth every penny. Or Polymetal Gray, that's a hatchback only color, so you won't be able to get it on the sedan. We've got this weird looking concave design. When you're looking at the Mazda 3 from the side, it almost looks like it's kind of dented. I kind of like it actually, but it is quite weird to get used to. And from the B pillar forward, this car is going to look pretty much identical to the hatchback, but back here it's going to change drastically. The hatchback has this big honking C pillar that I wasn't a big fan of when it first debuted. I've definitely warmed up to it, but for the first time since the Mazda 3 debuted, I actually prefer the styling of the sedan, and it's probably the one that I would get. So now let's go ahead and see how this sedan with all-wheel drive feels out on the road. So the 2020 model year doesn't actually bring any mechanical changes. Most of Mazda's updates for 2020 involve offering more safety features on the base model. So we still have the same 2.5 liter 4-cylinder Skyactiv G engine. That's the same one we had in the last generation Mazda 3. They haven't changed it out yet. There is this amazing new Skyactiv X. You may have heard us talk about it over on the CarBuzz site. It's a sparkless ignition engine, kind of like a diesel. It's supposed to get better fuel economy than a typical gasoline engine, but it is not available in America yet, leaving you with just this. There's no more 2-liter engine option. So this one has 186 horsepower and 186 pound-feet of torque, same amount on both numbers, still going out through a 6-speed automatic transmission. And I want to mention this automatic pretty quickly because it's good. It's smooth. It shifts. If I get here on the paddles, it shifts when I want it to. There's really nothing wrong with this 6-speed setup, but all of the other automakers have moved on. They either have really good CVTs or they have 8 or 9-speed transmissions. Some even have 10 speeds. So I'm just kind of surprised that after all this time, Mazda hasn't updated from a 6-speed automatic. Not that this one doesn't work fine, but I kind of want to see what Mazda can do with offering some more gears. Now, you can get a manual transmission on this car, but only on the hatchback and only on this top preferred trim. So if you're going to get a sedan, you're going to be stuck with this automatic only. I haven't had a chance to drive the manual car. I really wish that Mazda had one available to send me, but this was the only one available for testing this week. So it's the one I'm getting. And honestly, I think this setup is going to be fine for most buyers. In terms of fuel economy, when you get the all-wheel drive system, I'm not sure if you get this feature on the front-wheel drive models, but definitely with all-wheel drive, you get cylinder deactivation. So this engine can shut down to, I believe, run on only 2 cylinders. So it does get really good fuel economy. 27 mpg in the city, 36 on the highway, and 30 combined with front-wheel drive. Or if you get this all-wheel drive model, you're going to see those numbers cut just a little bit to 25 in the city, 33 on the highway, and 28 combined. And in my experience driving, I average just a little over 33 driving up from Miami to Orlando. And your fuel economy is not the only thing that's going to be cut if you opt for all-wheel drive. The car is going to weigh a little bit more, so your performance is going to be affected. Instead of 7 seconds to 60, expect about 7.2 seconds. So I'm going to go ahead and get on it here. Downshift happens quick. The engine is not loud and intrusive at all. It does make a nice premium noise, especially for this segment. There are a lot of other competitors like the Corolla and the Forte that have a tendency to just sound kind of cheap and drony when you get on the throttle. This does not do that. It's a very comfortable ride. I think it's more comfortable than the last generation Mazda 3. It's not as jouncy. The steering is still really direct for this segment. I think this is by far the best steering I've tested in this compact mainstream segment. And yeah, it's just a very fun vehicle. You don't have many drive modes. You've got sport mode that's going to go ahead and adjust our throttle settings, our transmission logic, things like that. I can now tap it into manual mode and get some manual shifts, and it's not going to overwhelm you on the power. I really wish Mazda would just put a turbocharged engine in here. That's the rumor that they're going to do it. But if they just put the one from the Mazda 6 in, which is a real torquey, low down, grunty, luxury kind of motor, not what I want. I want a GTI, GLI fighter, because that's what I've been wanting ever since the Mazda Speed 3 went out of production, and Mazda just hasn't built that in quite some time. You see, this Mazda 3 is fun. I think it's about as fun as the Corolla, maybe a little bit more fun, but it's not quite as enjoyable for an enthusiast as a GTI or GLI, Civic Si, or those kinds of things. Now, the all-wheel drive, it's a nice addition. If you live in cold weather climate and you want a sedan, your choices are this or an Impreza. That's it. There's really no others, which I think's interesting. Here in Florida, I haven't been able to take advantage of the all-wheel drive much, so I would have preferred that Mazda focus their money and efforts on putting a turbocharged engine instead of all-wheel drive. But with that in mind, we're gonna go ahead and pull over because we've checked out the driving experience. It's a very fun car to drive, but what Mazda has really done with this latest Generation 3 is try and bring it up market on the interior. Let's go ahead and check that out. So now that we've pulled over, let's go ahead and check out the Mazda 3's interior, where Mazda has outdone themselves with this trim level. This is the preferred trim level, so we have the nicest Mazda 3 available in the don't let your kids in it spec with this beautiful white leather. It looks gorgeous, so if you're an adult, I highly recommend this white leather, but I'd love to see what it looks like after a toddler takes a crayon to it. We've got an entirely new design language that is going to be making its way across the Mazda lineup, but this is the first time we've seen it in the 3. We've got this really nice soft leather steering wheel. Feels very Audi-ish, and I believe that was done on purpose. It really does feel like I'm holding an Audi steering wheel here with nice buttons and paddle shifters as well. We have a nice head-up display that we talked a little bit about while we're driving. It's not that silly pop-up piece of plastic anymore. Over here, we've got white on black gauges, very simple. The middle one is actually all digital. It's not actually there. If you push this info button, you can get different driving information, but nothing too crazy. You can't get any map information there. Most of the technology is going to be housed on this little screen here. I think it's about 8 inches, but it's kind of a weird dimension. Mazda went for this more horizontal display rather than something vertical. It's kind of boring looking. It's their new infotainment system. As you can see, there's just no color on it. It's very black, gray. Even when I go into the navigation, just not a lot of color there. You get sort of a split screen design, which I don't think is making efficient use of the space. A lot of times it's just an analog clock. You do get Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. You can plug in your USB right here. Even when you do that, since it's the horizontal display, most of your Android Auto screen is going to be taken up by controls for the audio, and then there's also going to be a clock there. So again, I kind of don't love this whole setup. You've got different buttons here for your navigation, music, your home, shortcut controls here. The trackpad spins, rotates, and it goes up and down as well. I find it difficult, especially with Android Auto, to figure out whether or not I need to give it a up, down, left, right kick or a spin. So I kind of think Mazda should just go to the drawing board with this design. It's a little bit better and easier to use than their last generation system, but I have an easy solution that'll fix it. Just take this screen, move it up to about here, so that I can touch it. That's it. All you do is just give me a touch screen, and I think that this system could be saved pretty easily. We've got our 6-speed automatic here, triggering the backup camera, not exactly a super high resolution camera, and no option for a 360-degree camera. We've got our little sport mode dial on and off. It seems like Mazda has taken the advice of journalists who didn't like that it was only one direction, that you went into sport and out of sport the same way. Now they've added a downward detent into the off position. And we've got dual zone automatic climate control. We've got heated seats. I'm actually a little bit disappointed that with this beautiful white perforated leather, we don't have ventilated seats, because there are a couple other vehicles in this class, like the Kia Forte, that do offer that. So this premium feel is just missing one or two really premium options, like that 360 camera and the ventilated seats, that would really make this seem like a great alternative to a luxury car. Now, the premium all-wheel drive tester that we have here starts at $27,900. That's for all-wheel drive sedan premium. The hatchback is a little bit more. You can get a Mazda 3 sedan starting at just $21,500. The hatchback starts at $23,700. No matter which trim level you get, all-wheel drive is $1,400. Now, we have a ton of options, like that head-up display, the power leather seats, LED lights, paddle shifters, and we've got the Bose 12-speaker audio. We've also got a couple additional add-ons, like the $275 wireless charging. It's in the center console, so it's not easy to access. I'd skip that, and I'd probably skip this rimless mirror that's a $400 extra. As you see it here, this car is about $29,845 with destination. It's kind of pricey. What I recommend is getting the preferred trim. That'll cost you $24,200 for front wheel drive, $25,600 if you need the all-wheel drive, and it gets you most of the stuff that you see here without the additional cost. So now let's go ahead and check out the Mazda 3's back legroom, which is pretty good for the compact segment. So in the back, we've got a pretty adequate amount of legroom, 35.1 inches to be exact. It's not going to change whether or not you get the sedan or the hatchback, but despite this being such a premium interior, we don't have rear air back here, no heated seats back here, not even a panoramic roof, so just not much to enjoy back here, but the legroom is quite decent. What is going to change if you get the hatchback is your storage space. So while I prefer the looks of the sedan, if you want more practicality, it's the hatchback that you're going to want to get, because underneath this little Mazda logo, we can open up the trunk to reveal 13.2 cubic feet of storage. That's pretty good. As you can see, we have all of our camera equipment. It fits fine across. What you're going to lose is that vertical room. The hatchback is going to have so much more, 20.1 cubic feet of storage. It's just going to make it a lot more practical overall. You're going to be able to fold those seats down and put large items. If you do need to put larger items down in this car, you've got these two little poles that'll unlock the seats, and then they drop down, opening up a pass-through into the interior. So now that we've gone through the Mazda 3, let's go ahead and sum up our time with it. Time to sum up our time with the 2020 Mazda 3 sedan. I think that the addition of all-wheel drive is a good one, makes it highly competitive. Not a lot of other vehicles offer that in this space, but I think it might be too little, too late. You see, the people who want all-wheel drive, they've already moved on. They're buying crossovers and SUVs. That's why the Mazda CX-5 has done so well, and I think the new Mazda CX-30 is also going to be doing well. I think for the Mazda 3, Mazda should have just leaned in for enthusiasts. That's who's still buying sedans and hatchbacks. So if they would have given this more availability of the manual, a turbocharged engine, and just a little bit more performance, I think they would have captured more market, and that's what I hope that they do in the future. Maybe they'll introduce Mazda Speed, or maybe they'll call it something else, but I want this car to get a turbo. That's when I'll give it a must buy. But for now, the strong looks and strong interior of this car are enough to earn it a Carbuzz score of great buy.